Well guys, it's now time for the next video of the top 10 MTWS seasons for the 15th anniversary. I did a few weeks ago the 2009 top 10, and now it's time to get to the top 10 2010 MTWS seasons. Now, it's going to be a little weird for 2010 because on the one hand, most of the events do have actual recaps and stats enough for me to talk about. But most events, the tracks in most events were still not recovered. There's even less tracks that have pictures than in 2009 because for some stupid reason, my dumbass back in 2010 decided not to take pictures of tracks like I did in 2009. So really stupid. We're going to have to wait till next year when everything is fully written down and all that. Alright, so let's get to my top 10 events of the 2010 MTW season. And this time it will be top 10 instead of top 9 like last time out since I got all the events written down. Alright, so here we go. The number 10 best event of the 2010 MTW season was 2010 Baltimore back on October 31st, 2010, as it was a live event, as it was a weird version of Chicago style racing which was done in the arena. It was a tight fit but managed to work, as this is the BeamNG version, as I do not have a picture of the MTM2 version at the moment, as it was the last arena event in MTWS until we came back here on August 26th of 2019. So quite a lot of history of this place being almost 9 years in between. And it also potentially set history in MTWS as it was the first time back-to-back weeks from Washington, D.C. event the week before where we had the two trucks win the exact same event 2 weeks in a row, as Nitro would win racing and Outlaw would win freestyle, Destroyer would get the number 1 qualifier, and in the finals it would be Nitro beating Heart of Gold, and then we got to freestyle where Heart of Gold came out after losing to Nitro in the finals and had a great run to get a 28. Nitro came out to get a double down but flipped too early and infamously went for the bus stack at an odd angle, went sideways and I think stuffed into the van stack, which is a beautiful sight. And then right after that, Outlaw, who remember the year before was second place in freestyle in this event in the first MTWS event, came out and had an amazing run to get a 31 to take the lead, and had to survive the gauntlet of hometown truck Shatter, who got a 29. Then Crazy, who won freestyle here the year before but flipped early and got a 20. And then the defending freestyle champion Mad Dog came out, had a wild run but flipped early as well to get a 27 to give Outlaw the win, as that's number 10 in Baltimore. Number 9 was East Rutherford on December 26, 2010. This was the season finale and another live event. It was the first ever event in East Rutherford, as of course the stadium I made instead of MetLife Stadium, which was not in MTM2 at the time. A dumb practice I would do, make my own version of the stadium, which I never will do ever again. Anyways, this was U-turn into St. Louis style racing, which, who knows, might have potentially been the first time ever I've done that? Not sure, as this was the debut, I believe, of a new bus stack. And I also used, which was really cool, a center jump or like a motocross jump and a landing pad, and had an animated gif of Santa on like his sleigh and his reindeer and all that as like a float to get destroyed and all that. It was really cool. I've never used that again in MTWS. Should have maybe considered in the future. But what made this event very famous was that it was the first time in MTWS history where we had snow in the event. Only 2 times we had snow in MTWS. The other one being the 2012 championship. But this was the first time we actually had snow and stayed throughout the event pretty much into freestyle early on. It got so much snow, it whited out the track, it whited out the obstacles, it whited out the dirt, everything. It looked so beautiful. It's something I would like to see one day again in MTWS. But 14 years later, we still have not had it. So, of course, history would also be made as Mad Dog would become the 4th truck to double down in MTWS history, as it would win race in freestyle, although it had to share the freestyle victory with Outlaw, as Soul Silver would get the number 1 qualifier, and in a actual preview of a few weeks later in the championship, Mad Dog would face Nitro in the finals, and Mad Dog would win. of course, Nitro would get revenge in the 2010 championship when he won its racing title. So Mad Dog would win racing. And then freestyle, it started off slow with the first 2 trucks. As a Clock Beast started, freestyle got 25. Patriot came out, slammed into the wall, destroyed the front end, but couldn't keep on going when it tried to. And it ended up with a 16. And then before Crusher came out is when we had our snow. And that's when it started snowing. And the event after that was a little dull in freestyle. The trucks did their best, but they didn't have a lot of momentum because they couldn't get a lot of momentum sliding out on the track and all that. It was tough for them out there. But they all did their best as they could. But in the end, Outlaw and Mad Dog had really great runs. Mad Dog, infamously the only picture of the event besides the filmed footage, had a really cool move where it went for the double van stack and slid off the side, land on the bus stack in a beautiful sight in the snow. A really cool picture and all that. And they both ended up getting a 27 to get the win. As that is number 9, East Rutherford, New Jersey. And then next up on the list, number 8, was Toronto, September 12, 2010. As we're now getting to the events that there was no picture of the track, so I can't describe how it was. Although I think, not sure, it might have been some like Vegas style racing, because I think the Toronto track I had at the time had it as like the default, so I just used it for this event to save on time working on the track and all. Because remember, back then I made the tracks like a few days before the event. I didn't make them ahead of time like I do nowadays, so it saved time and all that. And this event was very infamous for one thing: Madness. Madness, of course, debuted in 2010, and a few weeks earlier in the season opener in Houston. Because remember, back then trucks had budgets and all that. They actually had to pay for like travel and damage and all that, and it would make money depending on how they do. If a truck ended the event on a negative and continue on to the next week, they would be retired basically. And after Madness's destructive finish in Houston, it had a budget of minus $600 going into this event. So if it didn't make money, Madness was going to have to be forced retired. So a lot was on the line for Madness to really do well here and be very careful in freestyle and all that. And it actually would get third in qualifying, and Nitro, the hometown truck, would get the #1 qualifier as it continued its dominant start of its rookie year to lead to its championship. And what a wild event it was for racing. It was only 8 trucks that competed. Nitro beat Wild Ride, Thunderbolt beat Heart of Gold, Madness beat Soul Silver, which was really crucial because Madness needed that win, and Impala beat Prowler. And then in the semifinals, Thunderbolt beat Nitro, and then Madness pulled off the upset, beat Impala to prevent the Thunderbolt Impala matchup and make the finals for the first time ever, where it faced Thunderbolt, and in a stunning upset, it would beat Thunderbolt because of Thunderbolt not hitting the ramp correctly. So, if anything, Madness only won because of Thunderbolt's screw up. That was Madness's first ever win, and Madness would not win anything again until the 2022 Runners-Up Cup, almost 13 years later. That's how long it took for it to win again. And it win racing not only saved its budget to continue on, but it pretty much guaranteed its spot in the championship, since back then point stands were biased towards racing. So if you won just like one racing event, you almost got a spot guaranteed in the championship. That's how bad it was. But then we got to get to freestyle, of course. The big highlight, of course, was Thunderbolt, Impala, who would have a wild run and would get a 32 to hold on, as it had its last truck was its arch rival Thunderbolt, who had a great run but ended up finishing second with just a 29 to give Impala the freestyle win. So a great event, probably higher on this list because of just the history of Madness and all that, because that really meant a lot for Madness to survive this. Alright, so that was number 8 in Toronto. So after that, number 7 is St. Louis on September 19th of 2010, a week after Toronto, as Madness, after getting its shocking win in racing, would come back to its hometown. Thunderbolt would get revenge, though, getting the #1 qualifier, as Madness would actually get 4th place, surprisingly. Pretty good job for it. One thing we know about the track, too, was that there was a semi-trailer as an obstacle, because in racing, qualifying, Impala went wide and actually slammed into it. Of course, no idea how it looked or anything. Don't know exactly what the track was, but there was a semi-trailer out there. And then Madness and Shatter also hit the semi-trailer in round 1. It's funny to read this log again, like 14 years later. I actually do remember. I just can't remember who did it, but I do remember the semi-trailer getting hit now. I remember this from all those years ago. Oh my god, so nostalgic as a 16-year-old. And then we were also treated to not one, but 2 Thunderbolt Impala matchups. Thunderbolt won the first one, and Impala came back as a fast loser, only for Thunderbolt to win again, this time in a sloppy race. And then the finals would be Thunderbolt versus Shatter, and Thunderbolt would hold on and get the race and win that it was robbed the week before. Freestyle started slow for a while until Eliminator came out and had a wild run and got a 32 to take the lead. And then Thunderbolt came out but flipped early on his double down attempt and only got a 14. And then a couple other trucks struggled, Impala right afterwards. And then Shatter came out and had an amazing run to take the lead with a 34. And then after that, everyone else struggled. Crazy flipped over early, got a 12. And Mad Dog had a very strong freestyle, but ended early, as Shatter would win freestyle and almost double down. And I believe at the time of this event, this was the highest scoring run in MTWS history at the time, other than the Foxborough event, which its stats were not unfortunately saved. So yeah, this was probably the highest scoring event at the time for number 7 in St. Louis. Also, this was the debut of MTWS in St. Louis. Alright, then number 6 is Atlanta on December 5th, 2010. As what another event it was, as Blood Rage would be the hometown truck, Mad Dog would get the number 1 qualifier, and Blood Rage, despite being the rookie truck, would have a dominant night in racing to make it all the way to the finals, where it would face the number 1 qualifier, Mad Dog, and win racing, winning only its 2nd race of its rookie year. But the finals was wild, as both Mad Dog and Blood Rage screwed up before the final jump. Mad Dog spun out into the wall, while Blood Rage got stuck on a turning car because I was bad at making the tracks back then with the boxes. But Blood Rage managed to straighten out for the win. It's actually funny because I do starting to remember that too, 14 years later now, rereading this. And this event, oh boy, it was high scoring when we got to freestyle, as Ye Plunder started off freestyle with a good run and got 22. Crusher came out afterwards and had a great run and got 26. Prowler came out and had an amazing run, including clearing the double, so there was a double on the track, and got 28. Then Predator came out, but flipped early, get a 10, the first dud freestyle. Fireball came out and also flipped early with a 10, unfortunately. Blood Rage came out, going for the double down, and it went wild, and it got a 31, which was the lead at the time. Wild Ride came out with a wild run and got a 28. Power Forward came out, but flipped early and got a 17. Crazy came out with an amazing run that took the lead with a 35, which was up there as one of the highest scores in MTWS now at the point. And then last up was the defending champion Mad Dog, who was having a great run, but flipped with 19 seconds left on the clock to only get a 31. So Crazy would hold on for the win in a wild event this was, as that marks off the first half of the season. Number 6 was in Atlanta. Alright, number 5, San Diego on October 17th of 2010, as this was our first time back here from last year, and this was St. Louis style racing, I believe, because there's an actual video of this track, which I'll talk about in a moment, as we continued the curse, well, not the curse, but the trend in San Diego, where Crazy Bull from like last year would get the number 1 qualifier. It would make it to the finals, but would lose to Shatter. And then in freestyle, Shatter would double down with the win with a 34. Remember, there was a trend for a long time in San Diego where Crazy Bull would get the number 1 qualifier, lose in the finals, and whoever it lost to would go on to double down in freestyle. As this was like the peak of it, 2009 and 2010. So Crazy Bull, like I said, got the number 1 qualifier, lost to Shatter in the finals, and Crazy Bull lost to Shatter by 0.02 of a second. That's how close it was for it to get the race and win. Alright, so then we start freestyle. Crazy Bull came out and got 21. Eruption came out with a wild run and got 27. Madness came out with a 25. Soul Silver came out and got 24. Then Hard Gold came out, had a wild run to take the lead with a 29. And then Flying Falcon came out, had a wild run, and then it had a wild moment where it would flip off the van stack and almost saved it, which was the YouTube video. And took the lead with a 30. And then Outlaw came out and had a really good freestyle, but flipped early with a 28. And Shatter was the last one who came out and went for a double down and had a great run. And it didn't flip at all. It would win freestyle with a 34 to become the third ever track in MTWS to double down. And of course, continue the trend from San Diego. So it was a wild event. And of course, that trend continued. Crazy Bull getting number 1 qualifier, losing to the racing winner who had gone to double down. That was insane. Alright, next up was number 4, Cincinnati, on September 26, 2010. A lot of the September events were on here, as I actually know somewhat about the track. It was St. Louis style racing. It had not one, but I think 2 doubles. One double was a van stack, 2 van stacks which were in the middle of the racing lanes, and then there was a double bus stack in one of the lanes and all that. So of course, this was our first time ever in Cincinnati, which was the hometown of Crusher. Qualifying ended with a shocker as Aquatic Beast would get the number 1 qualifier, and Harder Gold would be right behind with a second place. And Outlaw struggled and got the worst time, third worst time in qualifying. Did not really do good. Now, what made this event very infamous was that in round 2, it was Soul Silver going up against Outlaw. And in that race, after the first jump, Soul Silver smacked the side of the van stack and flipped over. It flipped over, which means Outlaw won, but by rule of MTWS, it still had to finish its pass in order to count as a victory. So Outlaw still had to finish its pass. After the jump, though, it went into the turn. After that, it spun out, went up the double bus stack, went over to one bus, tried to get down off the side of it to get back on the track to finish racing, but it went off the side of the front end and then it flipped over. So Outlaw and Soul Silver both flipped. So by rule of MTWS, that meant they both lost, and therefore the truck they would face in the semifinals would get a bye. And what was crazy is, funny enough, that truck was Crazy. Crazy actually made the semifinals. Yeah, a rare sight. And because of no one racing it, Crazy had a bye and went straight into the finals. And by the way, guys, this is the last time Crazy has been in the finals, over 14 years ago, and only got there by a default. It faced Fireball in the finals, and it got cooked against Fireball. Not surprised there. Alright then, that was racing, however. Then we get to freestyle. Soul Silver started off and had a really good run to make up its terrible result in racing and got 25. Fireball came out going for a double down, but flipped early and got 15. And then Crusher came out who flipped early and got an 18. Aquatic Beast started off strong, but then only got a 22. Blaine came out, got a 24. Heart of Gold came out and had a really great run and took the lead with a 31. Outlaw came out with a great run and tied with a 31. Then came out Shatter, who flipped on the first obstacle, so it only got a 4, which was unfortunate. Crazy came out after falling short in racing and had a wild run with a massive air assault and such, as it took the lead with a 34. And then defending freestyle champion Mad Dog came out, where it had a great run, but as it pretty much did throughout all of 2010, it would flip early when it was starting to go good, as it only got 28, and Crazy won its second freestyle of 2010. So a wild event was with that by Crazy's last final appearance, and yeah, it was wild. Number 3 is Houston on August 25th, 2010, as this was the season opener in the 2010 MTWS season, as we used a new car stack, which was poorly made, and a new bus stack that was also poorly made, as still wasn't very good adding obstacles onto stuff back then. And I also didn't really know how to model the ramps to reshape them and all that, so yeah, did not do a good job. Also, it was the first time I used the center jump from the Monster Jam Atlanta 2010 event. Remember, that was live because someone made the Atlanta track on MTM2 sometime later. There was actually a whole bunch of versions of that track, if I remember correctly. I got one of the ramps, and it was not a very good design in terms of to make the box and all that, so it really didn't do good, which I'll get to later on. Alright, so of course, the shocking #1 qualifier was Eruption. The rookie truck dominated to get the #1 qualifier. And Mad Dog finished 15th place in qualifying too, which was very surprising. Alright, so of course, we got to racing, and the first race was Eruption Nitro, and Eruption, the rookie truck, struggled, hit the turning cars, and Nitro got the win, which would be the beginning of its career, but at the time it was rookie truck, so no one knew exactly what was going on. Shatter beat Bling in a photo finish. Destroyer faced Blood Rage, and Destroyer won in a photo finish, another one. And Impala faced G Plunder, and Impala blew past G Plunder, and a unique matchup was Heart of Gold and Soul of Silver, the only team matchup at the time as Team Pokemon. And Heart of Gold won after Soul of Silver broke at the starting line, and that would be a problem later on. Outlaw, Crazy raced each other, and Outlaw won easily. Crazy Bull and Madness faced each other, and Crazy Bull won, but Madness flipped at the end, which would be the beginning of its problems, like I mentioned earlier in Toronto with the money situation. And then wrapped up round 1 with Thunderbolt versus Mad Dog, and Thunderbolt won easily. And then round 2, Nitro versus Shatter, and Nitro hit the turning cars, but somehow would upset and Shatter in a photo finish beside the screw up to it made the semifinals. And then Destroyer would face Impala. Impala would win in the closest race in MTWS history in a photo finish where Impala won by 1/100th of a second. Eventually that would be beaten because ties would happen MTWS, which is hard to believe, but has happened. And then you had Heart of Gold and Outlaw face each other. Outlaw would actually win in a photo finish. The defending race champion almost lost to a rookie truck, and then Thunderbolt faced Crazy Bull, and Thunderbolt struggled, and Crazy Bull would get the win. The semifinals was Nitro versus Impala, and Impala would win to make it to the finals, just like it did in the first event of 2009, and then it would have to face either Outlaw and Crazy Bull, the rematch of the 2009 championship, and just like in a championship, Crazy Bull hit the turning cars, and it cost it dearly as Outlaw won. So the finals was Outlaw versus Impala, and Impala would win to get its first win of the season. What a dominant one that was. Ye Plunder started off freestyle with a 17, and it got caught by the center jump, which I poorly made and flipped over. Soul Silver came out, but it was still broken from racing, only got an 8. Blood Rage came out, got 22. Heart of Gold came out, got 25. Nitro had an incredible one going for the doubles and got a 26. A wild debut Nitro had. Hey, the beginning of its elite year. Eruption came out and went for a double but couldn't clear it in time and got a 21. Crazy Bull came out and got a 4, went flipped early. Bling came out, went for a center jump, flipped as well, only got a 15. Destroyer came out, went off the bus stack on a flip, only got a 12. And then Thunderbolt came off a wild run to get a lead with a 30, as it was the only one to clear the first one to clear a double. And then Impala came out going for a double down, and it struggled on the track and ended up only getting a 26. Madness finally came out very late and got fixed up, but unfortunately it would be a disaster as in its pass, it would go for a center jump and cross-thread into the double and slam into the side of the bus, which destroyed the front end and ended its run early to get a 20. And the flip in racing and the flip in the crash and freestyle would put it in its negative deficit that would almost end its career a few weeks later in Toronto. Then Outlaw came out with a wild run, flipped with 3 seconds left to get a 32. Then Shatter came out but flipped early and only got a 24. Crazy came out with a wild freestyle and showed why it was Crazy had a wild freestyle and took the lead with a 33. How fitted. Crazy and Outlaw top 2 in the event just like the year before. And defending freestyle champion Mad Dog came out with tried to get a great run, but flipped with 51 seconds left on the tire stack, I believe, and only got a 19. As Crazy would win freestyle. So yeah, there was a lot of similarities to 2009 from the 2010 season over. I just realized that. But yeah, what a wild event it was to begin the 2010 MTWS season. Oh my god, I remember nostalgia filming that event. Number 2 is Miami on October 10th, 2010. It was our debut in Land Shark Stadium, I think it was called, where the Dolphins played, since we played in the arena the year before. And a wild thing was Mad Dog the year before made its debut in Miami, its hometown, and would win freestyle. And in 2010, Mad Dog would get it again, and Blood Rage would get its first racing win. We covered Blood Rage's second win earlier in Atlanta. It would get its first racing win here in Miami, as Fireball would get the #1 qualifier, and racing would end up being Wild Ride going up against Blood Rage, and Blood Rage would win its first ever race. Good job for it. But then, of course, we got to freestyle, and man, this was high score near the end. A lot of trucks struggled early on the track. Eventually, Eliminator had a great run to get a 29. Crazy came out and had a wild run, getting stuck on the semi-trailer and got off after ripping it apart, but wasted a lot of time and got stuck up there once again and took the lead with a 34 despite wasting so much time to take the lead. Crazy stayed out there. Gee, how it did in 2015 as well, funny enough, a few years later. Stayed up there. Mad Dog came out and had a wild freestyle showing why was the defending champion. A great run and finished with it going for the semi-trailer with Crazy on it, knocked Crazy off, and flipping over at the end to win freestyle with a 35. Oh my gosh, what a run that was to wrap it up. What a great finish it was in Miami, although the freestyle was a little not as good compared to other events. But now we get to #1, the best event of the 2010 MTWS season. And #1, Pontiac, December 19th, 2010. The exact same spot was the previous year, the second to last event of the year. That's wild how it ended up on the list. So anyways, this would end up being the best event of 2010. As Fireball would get the #1 qualifier. I don't know exactly how the racing was, but it was only at 8.75 the fastest, so it had to have been really short racing, maybe like a U-turn or J-hook or something like that. But anyways, a wild event it was, as Crusher actually made it to the finals, where it would face the defending racing champion Outlaw. And in the finals, you had Crusher upsetting Outlaw to get its first ever racing win. That's insane. But that's not where the main thing happened was. The main results of the event was, of course, freestyle. As Patriots started off freestyle, got a 22. Crusher came out going for a double down and would take the lead with a 25. Madness came out and got a 24. Fireball came out and had a great run, got a 27 to take the lead. Eliminator came out and had a wild run to take the lead with a 32. Nitro came out and had an amazing run, like a preview what it would do in the championship come up, and got a 35. Insane. Impala came out with a great run and got a 29. Thunderbolt came out and would become the only truck event to flip, as it would fell short with a 34. Outlaw came out with a great run and got a 32, and then Shatter came out to wrap up the event with a wild run that got a 33, as it fell short as Nitro would win another freestyle. 5 trucks, half the field, scored 32 or higher. That was, I believe at the time, a record in MTWS. No amount of trucks had scored that high in MTWS. The event was absolutely insane. And guys, that wraps up the top 10 of the 2010 MTWS season. The Pontiac event on December 19th, I think, was the best event, and I don't think it was by much. I think it was by a landslide with how wild freestyle was. As I'm actually looking up right now, other than the Foxborough event, which I don't have those results written down yet. Yep, it's the first event where it had 32 or higher, 5 trucks in. That was insane. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the top 10 here as Pontiac won out, and we'll see you all next time in 2011. So see you all then.